Good evening, bonjour, bonsoir, and bonjour. My name is Melissa Marquardt, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. Mon nom est Melissa Marquardt, et je serai votre maîtrise des cérémonies pour ce soir. Just a few housekeeping items. Washrooms are located outside these main doors to your immediate left. And in the event of emergency, we're just going to exit the same way as we entered the building, which is out these doors and the main doors at the front. Les salles de bain sont situées à l'extérieur de la chambre sur la gauche, puis au cas d'urgence, on sortir de la même façon qu'on a rentré au bureau, par ces portes ici, puis les portes en avant. As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the County of Renfrew and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omamawini people. We thank Omamawini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Alors que nous nous réunissions ce soir, j'aimerais reconnaître au nom du comté de Renfrew et de notre communauté que nous nous réunissons sur le territoire traditionnel du peuple Omamawinini. Nous remercions le peuple Omamawinini et exprimons notre respect et notre soutien pour sa riche histoire. Et nous sommes extrêmement reconnaissants pour leurs nombreuses et continues démonstrations d'amitié. Nous remercions également toutes les générations de peuples autochtones qui ont pris soin de cette terre pendant les milliards d'années. All my relations, miigwech. So we're extremely excited to be here this evening to announce the Renfrew County 2023 Ontario Winter Games Legacy Fund. Nous sommes extrêmement heureux d'être ici ce soir pour annoncer le Fonds d'héritage des Jeux d'hiver de l'Ontario 2023 du comté de Renfrew. And as many of you, most of you in this room, and some of you may recall, hosting this incredible event did not come without its challenges. From having to postpone the event due to a worldwide pandemic, and having to roll with the extreme weather punches that Mother Nature threw at us on the opening night, we knew it wasn't going to be easy, but we knew that we could do it. 2200 athlètes concourant dans 23 sports sur 18 sites dans 8 communautés différentes, toutes exécutées par une incroyable équipe de direction soutenue par plus de 1300 bénévoles. 2,200 athletes competing in 23 sports across 18 venues in 8 different communities, executed by an incredible leadership team supported by more than 1,300 volunteers. Whew, it was a lot. To explain more, including what the games mean to the County of Renfrew, I would like to introduce Craig Kelly, Chief Administrative Officer with the County of Renfrew. Pour expliquer en plus de détails, y compris ce que les Jeux signifient pour le comté de Renfrew, j'aimerais vous présenter Craig Kelly, Directeur administratif pour le comté de Renfrew.
I can get by with merci, Melissa. That's about as far as I go. Thank you very much, Melissa, and welcome to the County of Renfrew, to all those in attendance today, and of course our viewing audience. Welcome to the County of Renfrew. And my job here is a bit of a walk down memory lane. I'm wearing the 2022 version of her shirt, and we have 2023 versions around the building today, so it's a pleasure. So it started with a text. Then an email from then Calabogi's General Manager, Jim Hemlin. This was a time when viruses were just colds and masks were just reserved for Halloween. We held a meeting at Calabogie with several recreation-minded individuals when we joined forces with members of our economic development team, where a plan was launched to bid on an upcoming Winter Games. We didn't even know what the Winter Games were at that point. Meeting after meeting ensued amongst the Brain Trust, and indeed an expression of interest was submitted. With minds like Glenn Arthur, oh, we miss Glenn Arthur, and Alistair Baird. We miss Alistair Baird, but he's just left our building, not left this earth. We were sure to be considered. In July of 2019, the Ontario Winter Games team made the trek from their homes across the province to our area, and were more than impressed with a tour of the venues that were being proposed. After all, this is Renfrew County, and gosh, we know how to dress up well. Months went by. Hints of some new virus were in the news, and delays of announcing the host community kept ensuing, and they said, don't worry about it. But, we stuck to our guns, and a formal proposal took weeks to prepare, and we relied heavily on our municipal and school board partners. Their venues were integral to making this bid a success. In the end, we were confident that we had submitted a proposal to end all proposals, and a new and innovative suggestion of holding the games over 2 weekends at venues across the entire region would be a game changer. In the words of some of my colleagues, this was a Renfrew County solution for a Renfrew County problem, and we had solved it. In December 2020, after recognizing that the COVID-19 was surely going to end by 2022, the then Minister of Heritage, Sport and Tourism and Cultural Industries, Lisa MacLeod, came to a council meeting and attended virtually that Renfrew County was going to host the 2022 Ontario Winter Games. This would be our recovery event, and we couldn't be prouder. Bringing 3,000 athletes, coaches, officials, and volunteers to the region would be one of the best events to bolster a struggling tourism and hospitality industry, and we couldn't wait to show off our area to the masses. Well, unfortunately, the pandemic had other plans, and the hard decision was made to delay the big show until 2023. We surely disappointed a number of participants, but it was the safe thing to do at the time. Besides, it gave us even more time to prepare for the best games ever, and kept Cindy around for a little longer and a little longer. So finally on a cold, thanks Melissa, you reminded me again, finally on a cold, windy, blustery night, I think there's probably more adjectives to describe that night, in February of 2023, with the glow of the town of Renfrew through the blizzard off in the yonder, the Renfrew County 2023 Ontario Winter Games opened to thousands and thousands of excited youth. This was officially our comeback story being written. We estimate that the Games added over $4 million to a local economy over the 2 weeks. More importantly, the Games were being held at venues across the entire county, meaning that many communities shared in the pride and the benefits of hosting these events in all of their venues. It also meant that volunteers could be engaged from east to west, north to south, and not rely on the efforts of one town or village. But from the beginning, the Games were meant to bring a legacy to the region, and that's why we're gathered here tonight. It was in huge part because of our sponsors. You'll see them listed, and of course Rogers is a big one to come forward. So again, thank you to Rogers, and thank you to all of our sponsors for that assistance. We know that, of course, Cindy will talk about more of that, and of course the chair will speak about that more later. So on behalf of the County of Renfrew, all the staff involved, and again, a big thank you to Chairperson Peter Ema, Games Manager Cindy Burwell, and the entire Games Organizing Committee for your dedication, your hard work, your tenacity to host one of the best, to host the best Ontario Winter Games in recent history. I look forward to hearing how the legacy of the Games will continue long after the last snowflake of that blizzard of February 2023 is long forgotten. And we'll talk to you about 2029 soon, but that's okay. With that, I'd like to welcome Games Manager Cindy Burwell.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't believe it's been 15 months since the last athlete left our fine county. It was a whirlwind couple of weeks. The weather was not cooperative whatsoever for that event, and we only talked about the first opening ceremonies. The second one were canceled altogether because of freezing rain and rain. So that being said, that is the reality of Winter Games, and that is reality of living in our county. When Peter and I started this process in 2021, Peter told me he wanted these to be the best games ever. So working with our communication manager, I said, let's make that a hashtag. So we said, hashtag best games ever, because we figured if we told enough people it was going to be the best games ever, and we repeated it enough, people would actually believe it, even if it wasn't. But it actually was. And we actually feel really good about hosting the best games ever. And it was validated actually by the people from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, who did say on the last day, when we had a little powwow as our team together, and said, I got to say, you guys did it. These were among the best games ever and the best organized games we've seen in a while. So we are super proud of that. Why were they the best games ever? Number one, the Games Organizing Committee. We had an unbelievable group of 17 chairs who worked tirelessly for nearly 2 years, most of them, over 2 years for many of them, not being paid. These are a volunteer role for 2 years, and I want to say during the last 6 weeks, they were working 40 to 60 hours a week. So it was a huge commitment. And they worked tirelessly through that, it wasn't always pretty behind the scenes. And together, we put it all together and managed to do great games. The other reason why it was the best games ever was our volunteers. As Melissa said, over 1,300 people from across the county stepped up to support these games. That is phenomenal when you think about it. These volunteers were unbelievable. I can give an example of one volunteer. During this fateful opening ceremony night, he had the task of driving to Ottawa to pick up mats at the east end of Ottawa to take them to the west end of Ottawa at 8 o'clock at night. Well, sure enough, his truck broke down around Antrim, so he pulled off, waited, and we had a whole crew of volunteers waiting at the east end of Ottawa to help him load these mats. He said, it's okay, they'll deliver me another truck for midnight. So he waited, and they delivered him another truck at midnight. And then he phoned me and said, that truck doesn't work either. So in a panic state, we're like, how are we possibly going to run this speed skating event at 8 o'clock the next morning? Well, this guy came back at 4:30, where the supplier delivered him yet another truck at 4:30 in the morning. He drove to Ottawa for 5:30. We got a team of volunteers to meet him at 5:30 a.m. to load these trucks in minus 30 temperature at the east end of Ottawa, drive them to the west end of Ottawa, where we had another team of volunteers who were set up that we were calling the night before at midnight, I might add, to unload these mats and start speed skating at 8 a.m. on time. That is the type of volunteers we had for these games, making them the best games ever. We also had the best venues, the best managers, the best schools, and the best school boards who also went over and above the call of duty to make these the best games ever. And I'm going to share one more story about one of our venue managers whose kids were a little bit hungry at the venue. He had given up for free in his own personal golf course, which we'd converted to a biathlon course. And the kids at the place were a little hungry even after the meal had come. So he called the local grocery store, asked them to stay open late. He went there, he picked up burgers, went back, called his buddies up and said, come on, we're going to cook burgers for the kids. That is, again, an example of what went on in our county during those games. Those were the types of people who were helping us put on these games. We also had our hotels, our restaurants, our bus companies, who not only gave us great rates and great service, but were just really, really friendly with all the staff, with all the kids, and the various problems that you can imagine having with food allergies and special diets. And the food companies and the hotels were just phenomenal in catering to all the various needs of all the different athletes and all these young children who were traveling for the first time without their parents. And finally, we also had the greatest sponsors. 51 sponsors from across the county came forward to support these games. A lot of them wanted to specifically sponsor the legacy program of the games, which we had already talked about in advance, would be to support sport and making sport accessible in our community. Peter's going to talk about more of that, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. So what I can say is collectively, the county of Renfrew put on the best games ever, and it was by no means one or two people. It was this entire county and everyone who had a stake in the games and everyone who didn't have a stake in the games but just really cared and wanted to make it a phenomenal event. So I thank my volunteers, I thank my games organizing committee who made this really quite a successful event. I was going to go through some numbers, but I think they've already been covered off, and I will not talk any longer. We put together a video last year, a thank you video for the volunteers, and I thought it would be a great video for this event too, just to give you a little glimpse of what the games are actually all about if you couldn't experience them live at the time. So thank you very much.
again, just a snippet of what happened during 2 weeks last February, and it's amazing just to see all the smiling faces and the future Pan-Olympic athletes that are going to be coming out of this province. And it's really incredible to know that we had a little bit of role to play in that, in helping them get there. I would now like to call upon Matthew Bradley of the Foundation to introduce them to our community. J'aimerais demander à Matthew Bradley de la Fondation de la présenter à notre communauté.
A little shorter. Thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you for having us. In 2007, we began to become concerned about things going on in the community. We were starting to see the decline of our service clubs. We were starting to see the closing of many of our charitable organizations' offices. And we already knew that governments couldn't do it all. In 2008, we formed the Pembroke-Petawawa District Community Foundation. Our idea was to establish an organization that could raise funds and meet the community's greatest needs. We are one of 207 community foundations across Canada. This is a growing movement to support local communities. All funds raised in the Community Foundation stay local. Funds come to us for short-term purposes and long-term purposes. We have a mixture of funds in the foundation now: palliative care fund, bereavement fund, children's fund, the Pembroke Waterfront Fund, just to name a few. Last month, our 100 Women Committee celebrated its 10th year of raising money in the community for women's causes. Yesterday, the Krista Johnson Run took place, once again raising money for the empowerment of young people. Later this month, Jason Blaine and his committee will host its annual event, raising money for local causes. This year, they hope to raise enough money to surpass $1 million over the last 10 years. Each year, we have a granting process. Our granting committee vets the applications and makes recommendations to the board. Importantly, community foundations can only give to qualified donees. In other words, registered charities, municipalities, and school boards, in order to stay on side with Revenue Canada. The most gratifying part of my experience as a board member since inception is listening to our recipients who tell us their stories, how the money was used, and how appreciative they are for our support. They say thank you for such things as facilitating the delivery of home-cooked meals to seniors who are alone. They thank us for such things as replacing windows at a women's shelter for better heat and protection. They thank us for buying clothes for families in need. They thank us for supporting programs for mental illness, for the troubled adolescents. The impact of hearing the emotion in their voices and seeing the passion in their eyes is very moving and heartfelt. It's not hard to stay motivated when you listen to our recipients. We started the Pembroke Petawawa District Community Foundation. Our catchment area has grown. It is working. We support social needs and capital projects from Arm Prior to Deep River, from Pembroke to Barry's Bay. Today, we are excited to announce, as of last week, our new name is the Ottawa Valley Community Foundation. A couple of years after we began, I attended a conference at the Community Foundations of Canada in Vancouver. Our former Governor General, David Johnston, spoke to us. In his remarks, he said, it takes a community to raise a child. That statement has resonated in my mind for years. We need to take care of each other. We need to break down barriers. It is working together. It is partnerships. And it is leveraging each other's strengths. As far as I'm concerned, and I hope you agree, that for those of us that have been more fortunate than others, we have a social responsibility to give back. We are honored here today to be asked to be the stewards of the excess money coming out of the beautiful games, Ontario Winter Games held in Renfrew County. We will ensure that those monies are properly invested and distributed in accordance with the vision of the Games Committee. We thank the committee and the County of Renfrew for their trust in the foundation. I encourage you all to learn more about the foundation. We've left you with a couple of pieces of information tonight. We invite you to visit our website at www.givingthatgrows.com or speak to one of our board members after the meeting. In closing, not to go on too long, I can say this. It has been a privilege for me to work with such a wonderful group of people. Our volunteer board members, our donors, our volunteers, and community partners, who I can assure you all care deeply about our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and congratulations on the renaming of the foundation, and we look forward to working with you. Merci. I would now like to introduce Warden Peter Emon, Chair of the Renfrew County 2023 Ontario Winter Games, to share a few words. Je vous introduce le préfet Peter Emon, président des Jeux d'hiver d'Ontario 2023 Renfrew County.
Good evening, and thank you very much for joining our proud community tonight. We arrived here after, as you've heard, a very bumpy start. COVID, arena breakdowns, fire in a pump house, which caused cancellation of a pile of events, a bus shortage, and the great unknown. Would COVID scare off our visitors and our volunteers? Tonight, I'm very fortunate. I love listening to Matt. I have listened to Matt over the years in court and in conversation. Court always hasn't been pleasant. Conversation's been great. And Matt's dad, Henry, who was just a beautiful speaker and could keep you enthralled for hours. And you've certainly taken on many characteristics of your dad, Matt. I'm sure he'd be very proud of you. And he also mentioned Governor General David Johnson, who is one of my favorite people. I don't know anybody in public life who I have more respect for and affection. Just a tremendous Canadian. So I'm always glad to hear any kind of a story about David Johnson. So we started off saying, we can do this. We're not going to take a back seat to anybody around the province. We wanted our community to be exposed to different events, to show our athletes and our soon-to-be athletes the challenges that are out there for them to experience. We've been a bit cloistered over the years. That's made us a little tentative sometimes, but we're back, we're big, and we're going to roar a lot. And so that was kind of our mindset. It wasn't kind of, it was our mindset. We wanted to show off our community and its many joys to the visitors and to the world. And we wanted to reinvigorate our community to enjoy the world we live in. We are really lucky. We've got good lives. I've got a good life. You all have good lives. And as Matt has said, we should share that. You know, the foundation's goals are our goals. And so, it's just, this is such a perfect marriage for us. And so we did everything that we said we were going to do. You folks, our volunteers, our community, did it. And boy, did you ever do it. You've heard some of the numbers about the visitors, the economic impact. All of our volunteers can tell you about any venue they were in, the excitement of our visitors and the athletes that were there talking about the great venues. They were clean, they were shiny, the people were smiling. They couldn't help them enough. Cindy was talking about some of the volunteers. We ran into some problems renting trucks. What are we going to do? Well, we'll call the ATV and snowmobile clubs, and they'll get volunteers. Sure enough, they got volunteers, and we started rondoing them around the county, delivering stuff, and they were just so happy that somebody had asked them to do that. And it was a natural thing for us. We were sitting, Cindy and I, and Bernie and Liz one night. Who's got trucks that can haul things? Oh, snowmobilers and ATVs. We'll call them. And sure enough, we got 10 and 12 trucks out of them, and they move stuff around. So our community just responded any time. Dean at Benny Holcomb called and said, I want to do something. Well, geez, I don't know. We chatted for about 3 seconds. I'll sponsor all the shirts. So all those green shirts had Benny Holcomb on them. Ben Holcomb, sorry. I always call it Benny. But Ben Holcomb. And Dean didn't really want to be known to have done that. He just thought it's something. He said, I've done really well over my life. COVID hasn't been as tough on me, and I think we need something, and this is it. And it was that simple. Other volunteers, Dana Shaw. Dana doesn't want to be recognized for anything. He didn't want a tax receipt. He didn't want his name and his logo, but we were trying to figure out how we're going to do something with our opening ceremonies that were unique. So we're talking about putting stumps in the ground. And I look at Kelly, because Kelly was one of the parents with a bunch of teenage kids who placed 1,000 stumps so that people could sit on them. But Dana Shaw had his guys cut them all to 18 inches and machined them so that they wouldn't, there would be no splinters, dropped them off. Kelly and another parent and their teenage kids showed up, cut pieces of plastic, stapled them over so that the snow wouldn't stay on them. We could sweep them off. It cost me 2 pizzas. Dana wouldn't take anything, wouldn't let his name be used. But that was just the kind of thing, like you could just call somebody and they say, yeah, I'll do that, or I can do even better than that. So we're just so lucky to be here and to enjoy these things. And I'd also like to thank Craig Kelly and the County of Renfrew staff. And it wasn't because I was warden. That has some cachet in this building. But you can walk in at any time when you're chair of a committee, when you say, this really has to go well for the county, and you blackmail them. But honestly, they just said, okay, what can we do? What can we add? What kind of resources? And so we're able to draw on the resources at any time whenever we needed them. And that's the kind of organizational muscle that you need to be successful. So to Craig and to Jason, who I harassed, actually, Jason and I had a pretty good gig. Between our 2 credit cards, we had all the credit of Renfrew County, the corporation at one time. Between our cards, we were paying for hotel rooms, we're buying gas for trucks, we're buying food. People would call, somebody from Barry's Bay, oh, you've got 18 people here, somebody has to pay for it. Oh, just use my credit card. And so mine's lost now, somebody took it. But anyway, a thank you to Warden Robinson and Council of the Day, and then this council as well, for your faith in our group and in me, for allowing us the opportunity to deliver this. It would have been easy to back away from it. Anybody could look ahead, see the challenges, but council recognized that we had a nice, calm leader in Cindy. We used to talk and tell each other we had to be calm, but she was very insightful, quite wise, and a great person to work with. Our 17 games organizing committee members as well. We met, and there wasn't a problem that couldn't be resolved. There might have been some hair pulling and some people leaving the room for 5 minutes and come back, but it always worked out. And so, I'm extremely grateful for the work they did. And I'd like to thank their families. Their families allowed them to give up time in 2021 and 2022, staring into a computer screen on a Wednesday night for 3 hours with 18 different voices talking, people trying to make dinner around them, dogs barking, so thank you to to them. And then also allowing them to come here and stuff bags, and Amy, thank you, and process and put the little passes on all of the 5,000 lanyards that we had. So there's so many great experiences. I think of like Aqua. Cindy and I called them, said we need 5,000 metal water bottles because we want to be environmentally conscious. Sure. Like, oh, maybe we should ask for something else. but yeah. We didn't cancel it fast enough. They had them made, so everybody had a water bottle that said 2022. But it was it was just things like that. It was such an amazing experience. And the good news is they've sent us a note today. I forwarded it to Craig. They want us to put in a bid for another game. So we'll look around for a volunteer. Fred, are you busy? So we'd also thank, just a ginormous thank you to Minister Lumsden, former Minister McLeod, and MPP John Yakubuski. They supported us throughout the process. We needed to postpone the games. There was no problem. You know, we had a couple of very interesting phone calls, but it worked. We had to reapply for our date. We got it. We asked for more money. We estimated it at $400,000. They gave it to us. And amazingly, it was, we pitched it to them because we thought they're a little nervous, up to $400,000. And so we got the up to $400,000. And I noticed when they did the announcement for the Thunder Bay games this year, it was up to $1.4 million. So I was laughing. Hey, they picked up Renfrew County language, so it was great. And a special thank you to Sarah and Ryan and others from the games unit. You know, they responded to many emails and phone calls with patience and wise words. They too had never staged the games over 7,700 square kilometers, a whole pile of different communities in COVID, with rising prices, not knowing if we're going to be able to go forward. So it took a lot of courage for them to recognize that we on the ground knew what we were doing, or at least presented with them, we knew what we were doing. But it was a great, it was great to have them in our corner. I'd also like to thank, I seem to jump the page. Okay, there we go. I'd also like to thank the town of Arnprior, the town of Petawawa, and the town of Renfrew. They donated their facilities and staff time to make the 2023 Ontario Winter Games such a success. As I said, we got just great feedback, and so thank you for that. That's quite an investment for them to have made. And to all of our mayors, we asked them to come and present medals, and they were quite gracious, because sometimes we'd say, oh, be there at 12:30, and something would make them last until 2 o'clock, and they were just so excited to be there. So thank you to all the mayors as well. So we have a partner, the foundation. So thank you very much. The Ottawa Valley Community Foundation. And that's what we were all about. And so we're so glad to be involved with you. And they're going to be, recruiting some members, I believe, with experiences from our larger communities. That's great news. And our whole Renfrew County community will be eligible for funds. And so very quickly, our applications will be accepted in early 2025, and our criteria is going to be fully further expanded. But the points below, just very quickly, our youth sport grant up to age 21 will be $20,000 annually. It's for youth who demonstrate a financial need in order to compete in their chosen sport. It'll be grants of up to about $1,000, and they may use for the following: equipment costs, travel costs, coaching, registration, and facility rental. Sports clubs, $20,000 annually, 4 grants per year of $5K to help sports teams and clubs, organizations with a specific need. An example, team travel to a major tournament as a qualifier. So, and if somebody wants to go to Sweden or Switzerland, I'm more than happy to go as a chaperone. So just putting that out there. I'll even pay my own way. So equipment and supplies, like example, balls and nets for existing or new startup clubs, and equipment to host a new sport, like for instance, sledge hockey, or equipment that can be used to introduce youth to a new sport. Coaching fees and other things, we're still working those things out. Major sports infrastructure, $40,000 annually. 2 grants per year up to $20,000. Specifically for new builds or infrastructure improvements in existing sports facilities that will improve accessibility and to ensure more people could participate and to improve the quality of the facility or provide a new option for sport. An example would be putting in ramps or accessible bathroom and entrance doors in a sports facility, buying equipment for grooming of cross-country trails, and updating a pool changing room, for instance. So those are the areas that we're going to develop a little further. I'm about to introduce somebody who is no stranger to our community and just such an enthusiastic supporter. Now a mom of 3 young children, quite busy, still a motivational speaker and just an example of someone from our community who has many great achievements, all through hard work, and has never lost her ability, no matter if she's in Europe or the US, never lost her ability to make sure that she represented our community and the values of our community. And so when we talked about coming up tonight, I think Melissa was all set to load all 3 kids into a stroller and head up the 401, but we talked her into joining us by Zoom. So without further ado, Melissa Bishop.
Hi, everybody. So nice to see you. I am so excited to be here tonight because I have some really special news to share. But first, I want to thank you for allowing me to participate in the 2023 Ontario Winter Games, because that is something that I grew up as participating in as an athlete, but to come back and to speak there and be at the opening ceremonies and see the athletes and how excited they were, and to be with the volunteers and everybody who helped put this event together, it gave me a different perspective of what it's like on the other side, not from the athlete side. You go in as an athlete and you just see, all the really nice facilities and the really cool clothes you get and the great friends and friendships that you make that will last a lifetime. But coming in from this side really allowed me to see how big of a production this is. So I do want to say that I am so, so proud of our community for hosting and pulling off something so big. I think this is just the start for what our little communities can do. You have put Renfrew County on the map with the Ontario Winter Games, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. I think we had one of the most epic snowstorms the morning or the night of the opening ceremonies. I don't think I've stood in anything like it in my life, but it was worth it, and it made it all part of the experience. Truthfully, it will be something that I will never forget. It was so much fun. Walking into that volunteer tent, I feel like I was just walking into a community of my own. I knew everybody in there, and everybody knew everybody, and I think that's a testament to how close-knit our community is and how supportive we are for things like this. So without further ado, I am so excited and honored to say that from the 2023 Ontario Winter Games, the Ottawa Valley Community Foundation will be awarded $375,000. I will say, as an athlete, back in the day when I was a youth, this is absolutely something that I would have used, I would have applied for. Growing up and trying to make my Olympic dreams come true, this is something that will absolutely be so useful in our community. And I'm so honored that I thank you, Peter, for giving me the chance to announce this news to everyone.
Wow, Melissa. Wow, that's amazing. Can we just get a round of applause? We have $375,000 that is going to be well reinvested back into this community. And, like Melissa said, she could have used this support when she was a budding athlete, and I know this is going to be well used by many of our athletes, as well as our facilities and our communities across the Ottawa Valley. So congratulations. This is just incredible. Peter, I actually understand that I need to invite you back up here because you have a few words that you would like to share with us from the Minister of Sport, the Honourable Neil Lumsden, as well as our Member of Provincial Parliament, John Yakubuski. So I will hand it back over to you. Peter va maintenant partager quelques mots du ministre des Sports, l'Honorable Neil Lumsden, et du député provincial, John Yakubuski.
Well, thank you. And the money will be dispersed over a 5-year period, probably 6 years, and we're hopeful that we could trigger the community to keep donating to that fund and stretch it out a little longer. I'm pleased to bring greetings on behalf of Neil Lumsden, Ontario's Minister of Sport, as we celebrate the legacy of the Renfrew 2023 Ontario Winter Games. These games are an opportunity to showcase the talent we have here in our province, while giving our athletes a chance to compete at home and provide a boost to the local economy. As a result of the Games' successes, the Ontario Winter Games Organizing Committee created a legacy fund of more than $375,000 to provide grants for up to 5 years for youth sports grants, sports clubs, and major sports infrastructure. With this legacy fund, the impact of these games will be felt for years to come. On behalf of the Ministry and the Premier, thank you to the County of Renfrew, the Games Organizing Committee, sponsors, and dedicated volunteers for having made the 2023 Ontario Winter Games a resounding success. Thank you, Minister Lumsden. He, as well as MPP John Yakubuski, are still in Toronto. It's committee week this week, so they couldn't join us. And John has forwarded these remarks for me. I couldn't be here this evening, as I have some committee duties in Toronto this week. Peter will bring greetings on my behalf. I recall telling then Minister MacLeod, give the games to the county. They just don't know when to stop. I told her it will be great, it'll be innovative, it'll be a heck of a good time. I changed that word to heck. And it'll be talked about for many years. I want to thank Minister Lumsden and his team, the Premier, for their support and confidence throughout COVID in us, in our community. I say us because I live here and always want our community to shine, and I am never disappointed. I would like to thank the County of Renfrew, the Games Organizing Committee, our many volunteers, and Peter and Cindy for their tirelessness, their vision, their hours of work, and their boundless energy. This inspired many on their team to work just as hard. Some of the numbers that Craig, Melissa, and Cindy have cited earlier stand out. Over 12,000 hours of volunteer time, 18,000 meals served, tens of thousands of miles of bus travel, 1,300 plus volunteers, 51 sponsors and donors. Truly amazing. And the legacy fund of $375,000. You really need to give yourselves, as a community, some applause. Congratulations and thank you to all of you who played a part. I am so proud of my community, the community all of you build up every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Lumsden and MPP Yakubuski via Warden. Well, that is the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the County of Renfrew, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, either here in person or watching virtually from afar, as we mark this special and important announcement. Au nom du comté de Renfrew, j'aimerais remercier tout le monde d'être venu ce soir, que ce soit ici en personne ou en regardant virtuellement de loin, alors que nous remarquons cette annonce spéciale et importante. Everyone is invited to stay for some light refreshments and some mingling. And with that, I will say good evening, bonsoir, wingazen.